In a surprise visit, Syrian President Bashar al-Assad dropped in on Russian President Vladimir Putin in Moscow on Monday. This is the first face-to-face between the two since the fall of Kabul. Listen.
We have the intention in Syria as a government and institutions to move in parallel between the liberation of land and the political process. The meeting today is an important opportunity to discuss these 2 points in addition to mutual relationships that will be followed up by our teams of experts from the two governments in parallel with our meeting.
The pair strengthening ties and no doubt discussing the situation in Afghanistan and more broadly across the Middle East. Meanwhile, an Iranian oil tanker has just docked at a port in Syria carrying much needed fuel intended for Lebanon, which will be then shipped by land the remainder of the way. However, this delivery violates U.S. sanctions imposed on Tehran following former President Trump's unilateral withdrawal from the JCPOA. For analysis of this, we will turn to Marwa Osman. She is a professor at Maraf University and Lebanese International University and host of the Mid-East Stream. Professor, thank you for joining us. First, can you explain to us the spiraling situation in Lebanon? What is going on there, and why do they need Iranian fuel right now?
Well, basically, Lebanon has been in a very bad economic and financial crisis since the last months of 2019. But the financial crisis was in the making since after war, since 1991, to be exact, and it became drafted inside of the bills of the parliament in 1992 until 1996, which means that the financial plan for Lebanon, or the financial engineering for banks in Lebanon, was put as laws in the parliament, which made it more or less illegal for banks to actually rip off the community like it did. What happened is Lebanon is not a productive state, not because it doesn't want to, it wants to, but the people who are directly involved with the banks and with the Central Bank of Lebanon, which is directly involved with international financial institutions, made it clear that they want to adopt an import system of economy in Lebanon, rather than actually working on making a productive economy in Lebanon. Alongside borrowing a lot of money from international institutions and donors, state donors and institutions as well, which started as $12 billion in loans, ended up being 110 billion plus interest rates in loans in a very small country, with 5 million with a population of 5 million, due to this hazardous accounts on having financial engineering and financial systems that would break down and collapse the economy. Furthermore, we have cartels and monopolies in the country that control all the services like fuel, like medication, you name it, healthcare. Yeah. So we have cartels and monopolies, and these monopolies are waging a war alongside the United States of America of sanctions and besieging on Lebanon because of the political system in Lebanon. So it was left for the Lebanese resistance led by Hezbollah to try and find a solution, because we've been standing in long queues of 7 to 10 hours per day in front of gas stations to try and fill our tanks with fuel, and we haven't been able to do so. For the past 4 weeks, I've not been able to use my car because I'm out of gas. So the resistance resorted to getting help from its friends and its allies like Syria and Iran, getting fuel from Iran through the Syrian ports and then via land to Lebanon.
Wow. Now, Professor, for obvious reasons, much of the West is focused on Afghanistan. Why does the international community need to pay more attention to Lebanon than they have been?
Well, basically, we have to make it clear that Afghanistan is a huge issue that will have a domino effect on the entire region of West Asia, and which comes up to the visit of President Assad to President Putin this morning. But when you say why should we focus on Lebanon, it's even if they don't want to, they will have to focus on Lebanon because of our neighbors. Because on the southern border of Lebanon, we have occupied Palestine, occupied by Israelis, and we have not a friendly relationship with that, with the occupation. So Lebanon basically is part of the international foreign policy of Western countries because of that specific matter. Added to that, Lebanon also shares a great border with Syria, where for the past 11 years there has been a global war against Syria, and there was a spillover into Lebanon, especially in the northern and eastern parts of Lebanon. But with the help of the Syrian Arab Army and the Lebanese army and the Lebanese resistance, we were able to rid ourselves from the extremists and fundamentalists, which are, by the way, funded by the West. So basically, we are part of their plan, but Afghanistan now comes first because it's a big failure for U.S. policy and U.S. wars abroad, and it will have a domino effect, especially that within the upcoming months, we will see a withdrawal from Iraq. This is the plan of the U.S., and I think it's going to be implemented because of all the pressure that they are seeing in Iraq, and hence a withdrawal from Iraq will definitely mean a withdrawal from Syria.
Absolutely. And Professor, lastly, in our final minute here, Vladimir Putin hosting Bashar al-Assad today highlights Russia as a key player. As you know, this is in their part of the world, so this is very obvious why Russia is doing this. Do you foresee Russia playing a larger role in places like Lebanon and Afghanistan now that both countries have new governments?
Well, in Afghanistan, for sure. We all know the history of between the Soviet Union back then and Afghanistan, and now with the entire wars that were being waged in the areas, and pressure against Iran, and then pressure against China from the United States of America and Western countries. So Russia has every benefit and every right, basically, to forge new ties and bonds with Afghan history. But with Lebanon, they've been very clear, the Russians in Lebanon, that they would stand by any government. At least a government formation would be a start. We've been out of a government for the past 13 months. So they are positively dealing with Lebanon to begin with, but they would rather not go into the details of the Lebanese politics because, trust me, it's very complicated. But the main issue here that now we are actually feeling the effect of the U.S. withdrawal from the region, and with an axis that is against the U.S. forging new ties, new alliances, even economic ones, it's becoming an area where the Americans and their assets are not welcome. So we are literally in the crossroads right now, and whichever road we choose to go will actually present to us the upcoming 20 to 30 years in the region, especially in Lebanon.
Professor Marwa Osman, that was excellent analysis, and I hope you guys get some fuel very soon so you can return to normal life. Thank you so much.